Welcome back to Briggs on Books, our international talk show where we meet authors from all over the United States, from all over the world, and find out about their books. Are you a book reader? I am. I'm always having to decide on my next book. So watch this show. This will help you decide because we have the best of the best authors on our show. And whenever you see an author that comes back again and again, like Amberlie Johnson, who's coming up next, it's because we like them and they're really good. Let's see if I can get her to pop up on the screen. There she is. Amberlie, welcome.
Welcome.
Now, I said you're in Indiana. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And what part of Indiana? I'm not that familiar. I know there's a race there once a year. The Indy.
That's usually in Indianapolis, but I'm in more south, more like the corner of Indiana, the bottom part, which is Evansville.
Okay, Evansville. Now, you have a book. By the way, this is kind of, I don't know, a little, I don't want to say upsetting, but it gets my heart when I read about your book. Because you're married, you're going along in your life just fine, and your husband dies right in front of you.
Yeah.
You want to pick up the story there a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, with that evening, it was kind of just like your normal evening, just like any others. You know, you have your dinner, you're getting ready to watch a movie, and you go to bed. And then I wake up to hearing what I think is my dog having kennel cough, so it's kind of like this gasping for air. And when I turn over, I realize it's my husband who is halfway off the bed and gasping for air. So, of course, natural instincts for me, which I never thought I would ever get that mindset, was, you know, to get on the phone and call 911, and I'm going to turn on the light. And by the time I get back around to check on him, he all of a sudden just loses all color, and then all oxygen, nothing. And then he loses his bodily fluids. And then I'm like, he's really gone. Like, this is really happening. And I was able to get him on the floor and start CPR, and then he flushed back with color. So it is something I never thought I'd see, and I definitely don't want anybody else to see that either.
And what was the cause? How did this come about?
Well, you know, not right at first did I know it had anything to do with drugs or opiates or pills or anything like that. I knew he had taken some for his back pain that was prescribed to him, but I didn't know it was getting to the point where it did go. That I later found out when we were in the hospital and he was getting treated. But again, he was just healthy, like in everyday life. I mean, nothing stood out to me that was pulling me in that direction. So this was like a huge shock that evening.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest shock of your life, I would imagine.
Oh, yes.
And this book, it's about, by the way, here's the cover for our viewers. I should have said the name right up front. Addiction from the Other Side. And this episode your husband had was as a result or connected to his addiction, which you didn't know he had.
Yes. Majority of the fact that when you get so far into it, your body just, you know, it can't sustain all of that, giving it constantly. So yes, it was a result of him overtaking.
Right. And
by doing that, he developed cardiac arrhythmias, and that's just because usually with drugs, it'll start to change your heart arrhythmias and also destroy part of your heart too, to the point where, again, you just code. And luckily I was there, because if I wasn't there, he wouldn't be with us today.
Yeah. Now, by the way, is this, are you the first person this happened to, or are you the only person that this has ever happened to?
You know, the realization of even starting to write this book was how many people, and I really think like every one of us knows somebody that's either taking these or has gone too far with drugs or is getting help already. You know, there's one person to every person. So when I saw the need and the feelings that I have for people, it's like, you know, I wanted to put it out there, you know, hopefully to stop it from going too far. Maybe, you know, trying to work something else out for their pain, or in general of trying to give them support too.
Yeah, and my point is, I think a lot of people could benefit from this book just by seeing, hey, I'm not the only one. This is happening to many people. And you and we should tell the end of the story. You and your husband came out the other end, and he's alive.
Yes. I mean, that is the goal. That's what you always want. You don't
Yeah.
ever want the person to just be gone forever.
Right.
And I do like to tell people, you need to be a little open-minded too when it comes to things like this. Addiction is a very hard thing. It's a real disease,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it's a disease of the mind. So you do have to be open-minded on your end to kind of listen and hear what is going on with that person, because there is a reason behind why they're
Right.
doing what they're doing.
Right.
And as long as you're trying to be open and honest with that person and you help them, usually with good support, you have the positive outcome, like I do with my husband. It's a very long, hard battle, and it is a battle every day. So,
Yeah. And by the way, I think again this book is good for people who might be facing. You didn't even know. I wanted to clarify that you didn't even know your husband was involved in any kind of drugs.
that's correct.
And
And at the time,
how did he get
and at
involved? Was it after he needed some pain medicine for something?
It started out that way. He had some low back pain. We saw a doctor. He got prescribed very minimal. But what ended up happening was that it just started to evolve into other issues emotionally he was suffering from that I found out later on, and being able to workload and everything. And by taking the medicine, he felt better. He had no emotions whatsoever, so he could just physically do and be himself, but just depressed on the inside.
Yeah.
So that's what medication will do, especially if you take the large amounts of it. And sometimes that's just that's why I said you have to be open-minded. You have to be listening. You have to be looking for these signs of there's got to be something else going on,
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote the book, to point those things out, because I wish I would have had that at the beginning.
Right. There are some warning signs, and you bring those up in the book and point some out so people could start spotting these. Now, is there a lesson in the book about CPR and knowing how to do some life-saving treatments?
Well, I definitely did, describe in detail what I did for my husband in those specific events. So that is like something to be like, hey, maybe I should do this.
Right.
But there's also like a part in the book too where it gives you phone numbers, ways to look up, sites to get treatments and things like that.
There's some resources.
I mean, there's all great tips in there to try to help you not be so stressed out and not have to worry so much about the money aspect or, is it going to make another day? It's just, this way you can kind of have like a checklist, I guess you should say, and it makes it a little bit easier.
It's just an intriguing story that makes one want to read it, but who should read this? Who's this book written for?
When I sat down and wrote it to begin with, it was just morally just me having a way to get my stuff out there.
Yeah.
But now I've seen even teenagers read the book and don't want to do drugs. And that is very important, because the more we get into even the younger generation, that I'm glad I'm getting that message across, because, things these days it just seems to be getting just scarier all the time. So it's nice to know that that's getting across to people even, 15 years old, 13 years old.
That's great. So it could be a good lesson for young people. So young people should read it. Parents should read it. Husbands and wives should read it. It sounds like it's written for everybody. And are you done writing? Do you have another book in you that's trying to get out?
So, being in the healthcare field, I'm constantly getting, more up-to-date stuff and more things evolving with the drug scene and such. And that's good for me and good to get out for other people. Not everyone's going to have the same outlets I do to get the information. So I am working on a second book to kind of spread it kind of throughout the world, kind of for addiction, and try to bring to light all the new things that are happening with that, and signs and different things to look for.
Now you put some resources right in your book that people can access. Were those hard to put together? Are those hard to find?
They really aren't too hard to find, but certain things like I talk about, like with the financing and stuff for therapy,
Yeah.
You're not going to really be able to know that unless I put that there. That's not ever a given, especially with insurance and stuff like that. You just have to really know how to talk to them.
Now, and I guess the only way to get off of drugs is through some therapy or through some program, and that could be very expensive, I understand.
It is very, it is very expensive, which makes, a point to why a lot of people don't get help or don't seek help because they can't afford to get it.
Yeah.
So that's why I had that specifically in there. And it's also not just putting them in a program. I mean, they have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And then you have to be able to support them in the aspect of it all.
Now, and one of the points I want to ask you about is that it's, we think of drug addicts, people who party and smoke cigarettes and smoke marijuana and go out partying and all the time and stuff. But it's just regular people who just got a prescription or something and it got out of hand.
Yeah. I mean, a long time ago, like you said, I mean, it was just like this, just fun atmosphere and things like that. But now it's gotten to the point where it doesn't stop at that one night. It's an everyday sort of thing. And it's just pulling and pulling and pulling until your body just completely gives out.
Now,
there's no stop with it.
We had a real opioid crisis here in America. Is that over? Have they stopped overprescribing opioids?
I think that the pharmacies, I think that they are getting a little bit more alert. So they are, double, triple checking providers with medications that we're prescribing to make sure that we understand that they're on this, and that. Yep. There's obviously sites that we look up to make sure what patients are really actually taking, to make sure we're not prescribing something else on top of something else.
Yeah.
But I do feel like a lot of things in this society, we're getting a little bit of like, when Matthew Perry passed away. Yeah. And things like that. We'll get those like notifications here and there, but it's not a constant thing, which I think it should be, because I do think it's very, very in everyday life.
Yeah. Now, by the way, those interested in the book, I just went to Amazon just now. I typed in Amberlie Johnson, and it popped right up. The first book popped up. It's so easy to find on Amazon. I guess it's probably on all the other book sites as well.
Yes, I mean, if you just put it in Google, it should pop with that or my name. Okay, so either way.
Also, I have on the screen Amberlie's Facebook page, Amberlie Johnson author page on Facebook. Go to Instagram, and I can't see what that says, Amberlie. It's Amby Bambi.
Mm-hmm.
Amby Bambi
like
Johnson.
One of my nicknames, but yes, that's how it comes up.
Amby Bambi Johnson. It's on the screen anyway. Go find her Instagram, find her Facebook, but go find her book on Amazon. And I say this sometimes, not for all the books, but don't just click once to buy the book. Click 5 times. Buy 5 of them, for goodness sakes. Give them away to people. This book could be helpful to so many people. And books are a great gift, too. Anyway, Amberlie, what else do you want our viewers to know? I always forget to let my guests talk. I ask all these crazy questions.
No, it's just, I just want to get that word out there. It's not just about me and it's not about my husband. It's about every single person. Yeah. And the fact that we don't talk about it enough and we don't open up enough about it, we're still seeing it consistently changing and hurting people. And the more we talk about things, the more we can make a change.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to put the cover of the book up again. And the whole book, the whole description of it, the cover photo, everything's very intriguing. Should make people want to read it, so I hope our viewers will read it. Like I say, buy it, give it as a gift. Thank you, Amberlie. It's very brave of you to share this story, and I hope a lot of people get inspiration or some connection with it as well.
I feel like that on an everyday basis when I do talk to someone about it.
Very good. All right, here's the book cover. Amberlie Johnson is our guest. The book is Addiction from the Other Side, and we'll be back with more authors right after this, so please don't go anywhere.